My fellow Americans, what do you say? Good to see you today. It's Wednesday, February 19. I'm Bill Press, and this is the Bill Press Show. Our next 3 hours will be just hopscotching around the world, around the nation, to give you the latest news, bring you up to date on the latest news, and then open up the phones, open up the social media sites, and give you a chance to tell us what it all means to you. Look forward to hearing from you. On Twitter, at BP Show, on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show, and or by phone on our toll-free number, 866-55-PRESS. A lot of renewed debate in Washington these days, today and yesterday, over the minimum wage after a new report was released yesterday by the Congressional Budget Office on the minimum wage, which reported that if the minimum wage is raised to $10.10 an hour, something like 16.5 million Americans will take home a bigger paycheck. 1 million Americans will be lifted out of poverty, but it says up to 500,000 people could, not will, might, could lose their jobs. Republicans say this proves the minimum wage is a job killer. Democrats say this proves the minimum wage is a poverty ender, and Democrats are right. Meanwhile, President Obama goes down to Toluca, Mexico today for a one-day trip. He's not spending the night. Meeting with the heads of Canada and Mexico, the so-called Tres Amigos Summit, to talk about the proposed new trade deal, the TPP, which, by the way, Harry Reid, Senate Majority Leader, says is dead in the water anyway, so the president may just be wasting his time. And all the latest violence in the Ukraine and Syria. We'll cover it all. Get your calls, get your comments with all of our guests. Good reason to stay tuned for the next 3 hours. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look, your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids
you.
how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I
state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Did you commit to change the world?
On your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Big report out on the minimum wage has the debate all heating up all over again. And that's where we start this Wednesday morning. What do you say? Good morning, everybody. It is a Wednesday, February 19. Good to see you today. We're just getting started here on the Bill Press Show, so it's good to have you with us on your local progressive talk radio station. Good to have you with us on Free Speech TV. Good to have you with us on Talker TV, because we got lots to talk about this Wednesday morning. Welcome to the program again, and get ready to join in the conversation. Whether you want to give us a call at 866-55-PRESS, try us out on Twitter. Find us on Twitter at BP Show, or on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. And we want to hear from you as to what all this, all what's going on today means to you, to your family, to your community. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Again, House and the Senate are on a long, extended President's Day break. Nobody else in the country gets a week off for President's Day, and Congress doesn't deserve one, but they just take it anyway. And President Obama down to Mexico today for the Tres Amigos Summit to talk about the proposed new Trade Pacific Partnership, or the TPP. We'll tell you all about it on every front. Hear what's happening in our nation's capital, around the country, around the globe. And again, get your comments. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy leading up our team this morning. Hello, guys.
Hey. Good morning. Happy Wednesday.
It takes a village, right?
Yes.
And these are our villagers, including Alicia Cruz there. She's got the phones covered. And all of this video equipment here, the cameras, the lights, everything. Cyprian Bolding. That's his job. And we're nice to Cyprian, or else he'll turn the cameras off and walk out.
It's happened before.
He's done that before.
He has.
I know.
Don't make him mad.
Well, 2 nights in a row, Jimmy Fallon's did pretty good shows, pretty good guests, right? Yeah. Taking over the Tonight Show already. Fresh face, not in your face at all. It's just sort of coming across like a nice guy.
Yeah.
Guy you want to hang out with.
Yeah. Not going to piss anybody off.
Guy next door. I don't think he's going to piss anybody off.
I don't think so.
And he's brought back some legends, some classics. I mean, Joan Rivers the first night, right? And Stephen Colbert. Mm-hmm. Last night was Jerry Seinfeld, who told Fallon that he's got a job just like the Pope does.
When I got late night, you gave me some great advice. Mm-hmm. Do you remember? You said this job is a Pope job.
It's a Pope job.
You work until you die. You choose when you want to quit. Yeah. It's a Pope job.
It is.
It's a Pope job.
Well, that's kind of a funny line, but it's not a Pope job.
No, it's not.
Jay Leno's not dead.
No.
And by the way, the old Pope ain't dead either.
That's right. That's right.
Right?
That's right.
He proved you could retire.
Sure.
You don't have to die as Pope.
It's not a lifer position.
No.
Not at all.
You can say, I want to spend more time with my family. I'd go off and You know, like members of Congress, right?
Yeah.
His job as a lobbyist.
That's right.
That's what Benedict's probably doing. He's probably lobbying in the Vatican. I bet you he is. He's got those red shoes. He's sneaking around, trying to get deals. He's probably representing.
The whole Pope lobbying gig is a sweet gig.
They've got a K Street over there.
Yeah.
He's probably representing some manufacturer of rosary beads.
Right. Exactly.
Or like Avian holy water. Poland Spring holy water.
Yes, exactly.
I bet you that guy, man. I wouldn't trust him for a second. I wouldn't buy anything from him either. All right, here we go. With a good lineup today, Joe Cirincione. There's so much going on the international front. We got to bring Joe Cirincione back to explain to us what's really going on in the Ukraine, in Syria, in Iran with the talks. Joe Cirincione here. The hottest book out today by far is the new book about Hillary Clinton called HRC. That is a note of royalty about it, doesn't it?
It really does.
HRC. What is it they have, like in the UK? There's something to do with the royal.
I always just think of it gives her instant street cred, the notorious HRC.
Right
like
there.
A rapper.
Yeah. HRC, at any rate. The authors of HRC, Amie, Parnes, and John Allen, are both going to be here today to talk about that. And then we'll have reporters in from Politico and Buzzfeed. And, of course, your calls and your comments. Makes for a lively mix. And the big debate this morning is about the minimum wage after a new report yesterday out from the Congressional Budget Office. But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Maximo Caminero is a 51-year-old man who was charged with criminal mischief after he went to Miami's new art museum to see the Ai Weiwei exhibit. And in a moment of protest, he smashed a $1 million vase at the exhibit because he said he didn't like the fact that this new art museum was promoting international art and not local art. He wanted more local artists featured. So, yeah, he picked up a vase and he smashed it. The vase is valued at $1 million.
And the video cam caught him doing it.
Video camera caught him doing it.
I saw the Ai Weiwei, I think you did too, his show at the Hirshhorn when it was in Washington. But Ai Weiwei has a history of smashing things
vases,
too. Right. Yeah. So it's, like... What's this all about?
If nothing else, he's guilty of taking his shtick. Taking another artist's
he stole his
material.
Shtick. Right.
Not that it's ever a good day to eat a Hot Pocket, but today is an especially bad day. Hot Pocket, owned by Nestle, is recalling their Philly cheesesteak sandwiches because, quote, it contains diseased and unsound animals.
Oh, no.
Well, yeah, hello. Good Lord, that's a good reason.
The Philly steak and cheese and the croissant crust Philly steak and cheese are both being recalled.
Oh.
So if you have any of those in your freezer or if you're going to the grocery store today, do not buy them.
Or if you just ate one yesterday.
Consult
do you
a
recall
doctor.
that?
Yeah, right.
And hope for the best. Bill, I know you're going to Chicago. I don't want you to make
I'm going this weekend. Friday. I'll be there Friday and Saturday. DuPage County Democratic function.
I don't want you to make the same mistake
Democratic
that Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia made.
Oh, no.
He was speaking to the Union League Club of Chicago this past weekend, and I actually agree with what he had to say, but he lost his audience. He was talking about Chicago-style deep dish pizza. He said, quote, "This should not be called pizza. It's very tasty, but it is not pizza." The crowd disagreed.
I am not going to say anything about pizza.
I wouldn't weigh in on Chicago.
By the way, I'm going to Colatex Bakery on Saturday.
Oh, man.
Remember we got that huge big basket from there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
That's cool.
So I may come back with some goodies.
Bring it on. Bring it on.
Whatever I can carry in my carry-on luggage.
Yeah.
So I'll have to take care of all the distilled spirits while I'm in Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah, here we go again. The big debate started up again yesterday over the minimum wage. Now, look, this debate has been going around forever and ever and ever. I mean, when I first started working in politics, working for Governor Jerry Brown, his first time around, in California as governor of that great state, my great state. I remember this every time that minimum wage came up, there was this big debate, and it was between those people say, if you're working full time, you deserve a living wage. You should not be living in poverty. And then on the other side, the Republicans and conservatives always say, no, because if you make companies pay people more, then they're just going to fire people. They're going to lay people. It's going to be a job killer. That myth has been around for 40, 50 years, and it is totally bogus. But it started up again yesterday with a report by the Congressional Budget Office. Now, just a quick point here. The Congressional Budget Office is a great operation. It's a totally, to the extent you wouldn't think that anything like that still exists in Washington, it does. They're totally right down the middle. They're just facts, ma'am. What are the facts? Facts. And they lay it out there. They're not Republican. They're not Democrat. But people tend to think of the CBO they like them if they agree with them, and they dismiss them if they disagree with their report. Classic. Remember just 2 or 3 weeks ago, the CBO came out with a report saying, we're doing great on deficit reduction. It is way down. It's going to get even lower. Remember, I at the White House briefing, I asked Jason Furman, the head of the President's Council of Economic Advisors, if we're doing so well on deficit, why are you guys still talking about deficit reduction? But when that report came out, the Republicans said, oh, no, we don't believe that. The Congressional Budget Office, you can't believe anything they do because the deficit is still big, and we still got to cut. So Republicans dismissed that. Yesterday, the CBO came out with a report on the minimum wage, and Republicans loved it because they found something in there they thought they could agree with. Here's what the CBO said about the minimum wage. It said, number one, if you raise a minimum wage to $10.10 an hour, which the president wants to do, 16.5 million Americans will take a fatter paycheck home. Flat out. Fact. 16.5 million Americans, flatter paycheck. It said 1 million Americans will be lifted out of poverty. Same job, full time, but they'll no longer be living below the poverty level. And then it also said, we're not sure. There could be no impact on jobs, or up to 500,000 people might lose their job. So that's the trade-off. And the response was predictable. Democrats said, of course, this proves the minimum wage is a great thing, and it'll lift people out of poverty. That's what we've been saying. And we're not sure that the CBO is right, that people are going to lose their jobs. Republicans right away said, no, this proves, again, it's a job killer. In fact, Mitch McConnell came out right away and said, if this passes, Democrats would have to answer for 1 million people losing their jobs, which is clearly not what the CBO said. And the White House, so eager to respond, put our Jason Furman, head of the Council of Economic Advisors, out on a conference call with us White House reporters yesterday, where he said, first of all, that he is not sure we should not jump at the 500,000 figure. It could be just nothing.
CBO acknowledges that the employment impact could be essentially zero.
Might be zero. And CBO also acknowledges that there could be other positive impacts about raising the minimum wage.
Raising the minimum wage increases motivation. It reduces some of the distractions that impact productivity that are related to poverty.
So here we are with this debate. Again, what do you think about it? 866-55-PRESS. Republicans, I love our friend Brad Woodhouse, head of American Bridge now. He was in studio with us last week.
Yeah.
Brad Woodhouse is quoted in the New York Times this morning saying, I haven't seen Republicans so excited about anything since the polls came out showing that Mitt Romney was going to be elected president of the United States. Republicans should not get too excited about this report. First of all, they're dead. I mean, they are dead wrong. This myth, it's a myth that the minimum wage is a job killer. And the CBO doesn't say that, but Republicans still cling to that. California is not the only state. In state after state after state, for decades now, the minimum wage has been increased with no job-killing impact. And in fact, the opposite is true. By the way, if you take their logic, right, there should be that raising the minimum wage costs jobs. If you follow that logic all the way through to its conclusion, there should be no minimum wage at all. You should be able to pay people $1, right? Why have any minimum wage at all if it's going to kill jobs? So the idea that going from $7.25 to $10.10 is going to create jobs is just it's a non sequitur. It doesn't add up, but they keep saying it. And again, the economists disagree, and the experience for the last 30, 40, 50 years is where the minimum wage has been increased. There is no evidence, zero evidence that it has ended up in a loss of jobs. So most likely the CBO is correct when it says that there'll be no impact. They say there could also be up to 500,000. So I think, number one, they're wrong, I believe, and the evidence convinces me, and my experience convinces me, they're wrong to say it's going to kill jobs. But how about if they're right? What if it's going to kill 500,000 jobs? Talk to me about the trade-off. Here's the trade-off, right? 16.5 million Americans have a fatter paycheck. They're happy. 1 million Americans are no longer living in poverty. And for that, you have to accept that 500,000 people might lose their job. I think even on the trade-off, it's worth it. But the bottom line is this. Nobody should be working a full-time job and living in poverty in this country. That's the strongest argument for raising the minimum wage. Let's do it, don't you think? 866-55-PRESS here on Wednesday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act. Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
They have two very positive effects. Again, 16.5 million Americans, a bigger paycheck. That's a lot. That's a big deal. BFD, as Joe Biden would say. And 1 million Americans no longer living in poverty. That's also BFD. Those two positive effects for sure. It says it could have a negative effect, might have, losing up to maybe 500,000 jobs. By the way, on that idea that the minimum wage a job killer, Earl Hutchinson writes in the Huffington Post, it doesn't take a course in Economics 101 to figure out that employers increase production and sales when there's demand. And, of course, demand increases when workers have enough cash in their pockets to buy more goods and services. Put more cash in their pockets, more money into the economy, more demand for goods and services, increased production, more jobs. Hello. Again, you don't have to be a Harvard economist to understand that. Jody is calling from out in Aurora, Colorado. Hi, Jody.
Good morning.
Good morning. What's up?
Minimum wage increases never really decrease jobs because having been on the other side, on the management side, many years ago, all we did was increase, a few of our prices on our products, et cetera, and to maintain our profit margins, and everything always adjusts.
Yeah.
They would tell us, our higher bosses would tell us we're going to lose all this, and to contact our congressmen, don't let them raise minimum wage. But I watched it happen many, many times over the years where the minimum wage would go up and nothing really changed other than we made adjustments. So,
Jody, that's my experience is absolutely the same. And I said in the governor's office in California, the Chamber of Commerce was always using the same method. You can't do this. You can't do this. It's going to kill business in California, right? It never did, and it hasn't killed business in state after state after state. There's an overwhelming body of evidence, as Jody just points out, that where the minimum wage has been increased, it has not killed jobs, and on the other hand, it has really pumped up the economy and created more demand, more services. In fact, ends up with more jobs. And that's one side of the argument. The other side I keep coming back to is it's just the morally right thing to do. You can't ask people to work a full-time job and live in poverty. It's just not right.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Here we go. It's 34 minutes after the hour. It is Wednesday, February 19. Before we move on, have been talking about the renewed debate yesterday about the minimum wage. Of course, President Obama wants to raise the federal minimum wage from what it is today at $7.25 to $10.10. So the Congressional Budget Office was asked, as they do, to look at any pending legislation and say, okay, what is this going to mean? They issued their report yesterday, if you're just joining us. The report said there's some really good things will happen if we raise the minimum wage. 16.5 million Americans will make more money, take home a bigger paycheck. 1 million Americans who are now working a full-time job at minimum wage and living in poverty will no longer be living in poverty. But they said there could be a downside. Some employers could let some people go in order to adopt to this, and up to 500,000 Americans might lose their job. White House quickly disputed that. The whole body of economics and evidence and experience disputes that, but that might happen. And is the trade-off worth it is a question we're asking. I don't think it's going to happen, number one, never has before, and I think the trade-off is worth it if that's the case. Dave is calling from Chicago. Hello, Dave. How are you?
Hello, Bill. Good morning. To expand on something you said just before the break, people buying things is what creates jobs. We have a consumer-driven economy.
Yeah.
And people who have more money in their pocket, who suddenly have disposable income, are going to go out and buy the things. Right now, there's a lot of pent-up demand that has built up ever since the Bush crash in 2008. And now people with an increased minimum wage will actually be able to go out and buy the things and create jobs, not lose jobs.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you know what, Dave? Remember, we're also talking about people. If you put more money in the pocket of people who are now making $25,000, $30,000, $35,000 a year, whatever, right? What are they going to do with it? They're going to spend it, right? They're going to buy stuff. I was thinking back. Remember when the Bush tax cuts came about, right? And even Alan Greenspan, who was head of the Fed there at the time, said that was not pumping money into the economy because you were giving it to people who have everything they need anyhow, right? You give money to the millionaires and the billionaires, they're not going to go out and buy a new TV, right, or even a new car because they got everything, right?
That's correct. I mean,
yeah, you got it, Dave. You absolutely right on. Good to hear from you, and look forward to seeing you and a lot of our good friends out in Chicago this weekend.
Man.
DuPage County, the big dinner, keynoting a big dinner.
I hope they're not serving Chicago-style pizza at the dinner.
Well, if they are, I'm not going to insult it.
Yeah, good.
I'm not going to
think
complain.
that's smart. That's
right.
good of you.
Now, so speaking of Chicago, there's one other thing I want to bring up right here, which is something that Chicago's one of the smartest political minds in Chicago, David Axelrod. He was President Obama's campaign manager the first time around. In 2008, I don't know whether he had the title campaign manager, but he was certainly but one of the leaders of that campaign.
Yeah.
And then went to the White House and was President Obama's counselor in the White House until just before the end of the first term when the re-election started up. David Axelrod went back into the campaign mode. Nobody's closer to the president than David Axelrod. You see him now on MSNBC a lot. He's a contributor there. Well, Axelrod tweeted something out yesterday, which I think makes all kinds of sense. And it was just a quick tweet here. Let me grab it. Where he said, and here it's in the context of this. There's so much talk, and you've heard me talk about this. There's so much talk about 2016. There's especially so much talk about Hillary. And there are organizations out there that are doing nothing now but raising money for Hillary Clinton in 2016, even though she hasn't even said for sure that she is going to run. And again, I know I'm repeating myself. You've probably heard me say it before. I love Hillary. I'm a member of the Hillary fan club. But I think all this talk about Hillary in 2016 is premature political ejaculation. I mean, get over it. We ought to be thinking about not 2016. This is midterm election year, 2014. We've got some important work to do. David Axelrod picked up that same plea yesterday with his tweet. Here's his tweet, quote, "With the Senate seriously at risk and the Koch brothers spending prodigiously, which they are, shouldn't Democratic funders be focused on 14 and not 16 races?" Abso-freaking-lutely. I mean, come on, let's get our priorities straight. There are 36, right? Yeah, 36 Senate seats up for re-election this time. Okay, 21 Democratic seats and 15 Republican seats. That means the whole control of the United States Senate is on the line. And that's not important? You're damn right that's important. It's right for the country. It's right for the president's agenda. It's right for things like we've been talking about. If you any hope of raising the minimum wage, any hope of extending unemployment insurance, any hope of getting anything done on immigration reform or climate change, it's not going to happen if Republicans take over the Senate. That's for sure. It'll just be one more House of Congress which says to President Obama, we don't care what you want. If you're for it, we're against it. So you got control of the Senate that's up in 2014. And then the House. Every single seat is up for grabs in the House of Representatives. And Democrats need 17 seats to pick up control of the House. It's a long shot, but it's doable. It is definitely doable because all the Republicans have is running against Obamacare. That's their one issue. They want it to be their one issue. And the more people sign up for Obamacare and the more better the website works and the more people see the advantages of it, the less likely that is to be a real drag on the Democratic Party. I don't think it's going to be a drag on Democrats at all. But my point is, if it's control of the Senate and control of the House on the line in 2014, that is important. Imagine what could get done. We saw what could get done in the first 2 years of the Obama presidency if he had a Congress willing to cooperate with him. He could even get stuff done if we had Republicans willing to cooperate with him. Unfortunately, this gang of Republicans, the Tea Party House members, will simply not cooperate with him on anything. So you've got the Senate up, the House up, and then you've got governorships. There are 36 governorships up around the country today. Up for re-election. What am I saying? This year in 2014. Now, we stand today with 29 Republican governors and 21 Democratic governors. And those governorships are important because that's where the lines are drawn. Remember, for Congress, that's how we got so many Tea Party members in the first place, because Democrats were asleep at the switch in 2010 and lost so many governor's races and state legislative races. So, man, I got to tell you, I can't emphasize that too often. And, boy, that's one of the things I'm going to tell the Democrats Saturday night in Chicago in DuPage County. Forget 2016. I don't care whether it's Hillary or Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders or Herman Cain. I mean, forget 2016. Look at 2014, and we ought to be putting all of our efforts and all of our money and all of our focus right now on 2014. We've got plenty of time for 2016. David Axelrod is absolutely right. Democratic funders should be focused on 2014 races and not 2016 races right now. Hey, with the minimum wage and other economic issues, we're going to check in with Kevin Cirilli, who's a finance reporter for Politico, joining us on our newsline in the next segment here of the Bill Press Show on this Wednesday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.
For more than 18 months, the members of AFSCME 3299 have been working to secure a new contract with the University of California. With workplace injuries at UC skyrocketing and government fines related to safety deficiencies at UC hospitals skyrocketing, Local 3299's top priority has been safe staffing at the workplace.
We've been short of people for the last 5 years. They're stretching us thin, which the students are suffering, the faculty suffering, and the patients are suffering.
While UC administrators have granted these standards to other UC workers, they have refused to make similar accommodations for AFSCME represented workers who perform the most physically demanding labor at UC.
It takes a whole team to take care of the patient. It's not just the RN and it's not just the doctor. The nurses were able to win a great contract, and AFSCME workers, the patient care workers and service workers, they're part of the team and they deserve that same fair contract too.
We take pride into working for the university, and we feel like the university doesn't value the work that we do.
But the second-class treatment of AFSCME workers doesn't end at safety and staffing. On wages, benefits, and other issues, UC refuses to offer AFSCME 3299 members the same respect they afford their other workers.
I have 3 jobs because what the university pays me is just not enough to make a living for my family and myself.
99% of service workers in the UC system make so little money that they're eligible for at least some form of public assistance. At the same time, the number of executives in the UC system that have crossed over into making at least $250,000 a year has more than doubled since 2008.
The University of California has long been a beacon of hope and progress for those struggling for dignity and fairness. With such a proud history, it is disturbing to see the leadership of the university treat its lowest paid workers like second-class citizens.
All workers at the university deserve equal treatment.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
13 minutes before the top of the hour. In the next hour, John Allen and Amie Parnes, who've got the hottest book out today, certainly hottest political book out today, HRC, all about Hillary Clinton. They will be here in studio with us to tell us all about it. A lot of buzz in Washington today and yesterday over the latest report out by the Congressional Budget Office on the minimum wage. On that, on other topics, we check in with our good friend from Politico, finance reporter Kevin Cirilli, joining us on our newsline this morning. Hello, Kevin.
Good morning, Bill. How are you?
All right. Thanks for getting up early for us this morning. So,
no problem.
Does this CBO report change anything in the debate over the minimum wage?
I think it jolts the minimum wage debate. I'm not sure that it changes anything, but I do think that it's certainly, similarly to the Obamacare CBO report that was released the other week, I think it definitely adds some fresh fuel to the fire for Republicans, and I think it stokes the flame and makes the debate more contentious.
So the bottom line, as I read it in the report, right, it says there will be some positive impacts and maybe one negative impact, right? Positive impact, 16.5 million Americans get a bigger paycheck, 1 million Americans lifted out of poverty, possible negative, up to 500,000 could lose their jobs, correct? Sum it up correctly?
Correct, and I think that this is really the classic minimum wage debate, correct? I mean, people saying that, yes, while on one hand folks will get pay increases, it will also force small business owners to have to really make some tough decisions. If they're going to be paying their employees more money, they might not be able to have to hire enough folks in the first place, right, especially as we inch out of this recession. All
right. Now, we've heard that debate. I have to tell you, and I mentioned this earlier, Kevin, since I was working for Jerry Brown, governor of California, his policy director 30 years ago, I have heard that argument in California and around the country. If you raise the minimum wage, people are going to lose their jobs. I have never seen it actually proved to be true. Is there evidence of job loss when you raise a minimum wage?
You know, that's a great question, but I really think, Bill, that it depends on who you ask. I think that conservatives... No, it shouldn't depend,
Kevin, it should not depend on who you ask. It should depend on the facts. No.
I know, but the CBO report says yesterday that it does, but you say that it doesn't. I think it really depends.
No, well, I just want to correct you a little bit. The CBO report doesn't say it does. It says it might, right? I mean, as Jason Furman told us yesterday, the CBO report also says the impact could be 0 jobs lost, right?
Yeah, but I do think that in the grand scheme of things, when you look at what they said about Obamacare, this is supposed to be a nonpartisan, by the way, office, but really they're weighing in on some controversial issues.
I know. Yeah, no. But all I'm saying is, let's get away from the CBO report and let's just look at facts. In this country, over the last 30, 40 years, despite what the Chamber of Commerce of the Republican Party has said, I have yet to see any study or any economist that shows that, in fact, the minimum wage was raised and X number of jobs were lost. In fact, you're an economist. Isn't it just the opposite? I mean, you put more money in people's pockets, right? They're going to go out and spend it. That creates more demand. That means more jobs.
That's the great point. Is people who would argue against folks who believe that that increasing the minimum wage would have a negative effect on the economy will also tell you that if you're paying people more, that it would also lead them into a trickle down theory. So there is that argument, but I do think, again, in a midterm year, that this just stoked the flames of this debate, and it's something that I think small business owners and that the Republicans are going to latch on to as we head into this midterm year and really, again, draw the battle lines. But minimum wage, increasing the minimum wage, remains something extremely popular in the polls. It's something that President Obama has said that he wants to do, that he's going to do it through federal workers with executive order. And I think that even next week and this week alone, we're going to be hearing much more about minimum wage coming from the administration.
The other thing, just quickly, that the president announced yesterday, a new program of tax credits for those who make big trucks, right, big 18-wheelers, and make them more fuel efficient. Is that something that's likely to have a little boost on the economy? I mean, how important is that?
I think it's just another example that we're seeing from the administration. He's doing this through executive order, and this is something that he said that he would do in his State of the Union address. He announced these plans yesterday in a speech in Maryland, and I just think it's another illustration of him bypassing Congress and doing something that he can do without having to get congressional approval. Yeah, it sort of says, if you're not going to pass any climate change legislation, well, then I'll do little bits at a time to the extent that I can, right? Exactly. And they've already increased the CAFE standards for cars and light trucks. This is for heavy trucks, which I didn't even think was possible, right? But obviously the technology is there. Yeah. So. And again, the thinking goes that if he's able to do this, hopefully, it will shine light on the issue and encourage Congress to act and get some more change goods. Yeah, he's got his phone and his pen, as he said, and he is willing to use them. All right. Hey, Kevin, I'll see you back here in studio again soon. Thanks for joining us on the phone this morning. Thanks for having me. Have a great day. Bye-bye. All right. On our newsline, Kevin Cirilli from Politico, Politico.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Racing data. I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go in the next hour. Justin Sink from The Hill covers the White House for The Hill here in studio with us, as well as Amie Parnes and John Allen, who are authors of the blockbuster new book, HRC, all about Hillary Clinton. Peter.
Have you watched any more House of Cards?
I've watched 3 segments so far.
Three episodes.
Right.
All right. Well, Robin Wright,
Yes.
one of the stars.
Phenomenal.
She was in Capital File magazine. She's in Capital File magazine this month, and she was talking about D.C. versus Hollywood, and she said, quote, D.C. is more corrupt than Hollywood. It really is. It's much more sleazy than Hollywood with how much infidelity goes on. She says D.C. is like the worst place on the planet, apparently, if you put it up against Hollywood.
A sex pot? Didn't we have the sex pot that they call Washington, D.C.?
Apparently, yeah.
Well, I have to tell you, having lived in Hollywood and having lived in Washington, D.C., it would be hard to say which one is has more sleaze, to tell the truth.
Okay. All right.
But I think she's right.
I don't disagree with her. I haven't spent much time in Hollywood.
I think Washington wins out, because... but the difference is that the sleazeballs here are elected officials.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
My fellow Americans, what do you say? Good to see you today. It's Wednesday, February 19. I'm Bill Press, and this is the Bill Press Show. Our next 3 hours will be just hopscotching around the world, around the nation, to give you the latest news, bring you up to date on the latest news, and then open up the phones, open up the social media sites, and give you a chance to tell us what it all means to you. Look forward to hearing from you. On Twitter, at BP Show. On Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. And or by phone on our toll-free number, 866-55-PRESS. A lot of renewed debate in Washington these days, today and yesterday, over the minimum wage after a new report was released yesterday by the Congressional Budget Office on the minimum wage, which reported that if the minimum wage is raised to $10.10 an hour, something like 16.5 million Americans will take home a bigger paycheck. 1 million Americans will be lifted out of poverty, but it says up to 500,000 people could, not will, could lose their jobs. Republicans say this proves the minimum wage is a job killer. Democrats say this proves the minimum wage is a poverty ender, and Democrats are right. Meanwhile, President Obama goes down to Toluca, Mexico today for a one-day trip. He's not spending the night. Meeting with the heads of Canada and Mexico, the so-called Tres Amigos Summit, to talk about the proposed new trade deal, the TPP, which, by the way, Harry Reid, Senate Majority Leader, says is dead in the water anyway, so the president may just be wasting his time. And all the latest violence in the Ukraine and Syria. We'll cover it all. Get your calls, get your comments with all of our guests. Good reason to stay tuned for the next 3 hours. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat?
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
2 more Democrats announced that they are not going to run for re-election to the House of Representatives. Dropping like flies. Hey, good morning, everybody. What do you say? Here we go on a Wednesday morning, February 19. Great to see you this morning. Welcome to the program, wherever you happen to be in this great land of ours. We are there with you on your local progressive talk radio station. And we're also there with you on television, on Free Speech TV, and on the video stream at Talker TV, youtube.com/Talker, TAWKR TV. Bringing you up to date on what's going on this morning here in our nation's capital, around the country, and around the globe, and most importantly, giving you a chance to sound off about it. Give us a call the old-fashioned way, 866-55-PRESS, or it's kind of old-fashioned now, too. Just send us comments on Twitter. But there we are, at BP Show, or on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. President Obama back from his California vacay over the weekend with a busy schedule yesterday and today. Justin Sink covers the White House for The Hill. We do the briefings together every day, and Justin's in the studio with us this morning. Good to see you, Justin.
Thanks for having me.
Nice you have some early morning hours, too.
Yeah.
Like I do. Except for me, it's every day.
That's fair. I try to go late, so spread it through the entire day.
You join our team here, Peter Rockburn and Elise Murphy.
Hey. Good morning.
Alicia Cruz on the phones, and Cyprian Bolding on the video cam as well. Are you a House of Cards fan?
I have to admit that I spent my long weekend plowing through the entire series. I did the whole thing.
Little binge watching.
The second season, huh?
Yeah.
I'm still getting through the first season, but anyhow.
For me, it's just too addictive to stop. So I, fire up the Netflix and
it's like
4 hours.
It is like candy.
Yeah, it really is. And the thing is, it's not. I don't think it's a great show in terms of. I don't think it's a really well done show. I think the acting can be kind of hammy sometimes, but it's so addictive.
It's very suspenseful.
Yeah,
and so you're right. It's not great.
Especially if you live in Washington.
Right.
And I think the characters are great. I like Underwood. I like his wife, and I like the reporter. I mean, the main ones.
Well, let's pretend that reporting is that exciting.
Yeah, right. It gets pretty kooky. I know you're not that far in. It gets pretty kooky. But it's still enjoyable.
Well, here's one thing, one little insight. Kevin Spacey's obviously getting a lot of airtime now because the second season has just been launched. But he talks about Frank Underwood's role model. Here's Kevin Spacey yesterday.
If I could say anything, maybe it's the fact that he admires Lyndon Johnson so much. And if you look at Lyndon Johnson and certainly his reputation of being a very tough, very difficult, in-your-face negotiator, there's a couple of photos that I have on my wall in House of Cards that are pictures of literally Johnson in someone's face, leaning over them. He was a very, very tough negotiator.
Yeah, he was a tough negotiator. But you can see that Underwood was sort of the Johnson style, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it certainly invokes those sort of Robert Caro books about Johnson and how he wielded power and every different way he did it. And actually, interestingly, I don't know if you read that New Yorker piece on Obama. Came out about a month or two ago,
totally.
The David Roenick piece. But it was an interesting moment in there where Caro said he had been invited to a dinner at the White House or something.
Yes.
Obama was very cold to him. And the reason that he was cold to him was it was right after the book was published. And Obama saw the book as sort of a rebuke of his presidency because
Johnson got so much done and he hasn't.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And I mean, there are different times and all of that. But I gave this number yesterday because I was doing a little research. LBJ, in the short time he was president, he sent 200 proposals up to Congress. 181 of them became law.
It is a little bit easier when you got majorities in both chambers,
it is,
but still,
also,
that is
it wasn't easy to get that civil rights bill past the Southern Democrats.
Yeah.
But and when you basically really, really did twist arms, and nobody could do it like Johnson did.
That's incredible.
That's a batting average of 95%. You know what I mean?
Baseball.
Yeah, right. Hello, here he comes up to plate with a 950 batting average. All right. Hey, so Justin's here with us for the first half hour, and then Amie Parnes and John Allen, authors of the bombshell book, blockbuster book, HRC, joining us at the half. But first,
This
big headlines
is the
here.
full breaking news.
Breaking news. Here we go.
We have a gold medal in the Olympics. Spoiler alert, in case you want to watch later on. I'm going to tell you now. American Ted Ligety has won gold in the men's giant slalom in Sochi, Russia. He is the first American to ever win that race. This is his second gold. He won a gold at the combined event in the 2006 Olympics in Turin. This makes him the first American skier to win 2 gold medals in the last 60 years. Only one other skier has done it back in the 1950s.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Good.
congratulations.
All right. Never heard of him. But
gold home.
By the way, some of these, again, these winter sports, we're watching some of the snowboarding last night where the 6 of them start out. I mean, these are like suicidal sports.
There's been some brutal injuries.
There have been.
I mean, it's scary stuff.
Yeah. It was around this time yesterday that we were talking about Jimmy Fallon's debut on The Tonight Show, and now we have the ratings. How did he do? Big numbers. 11.3 million viewers tuned in. That comes up a little bit short to what Jay Leno delivered in his
short of
final
what we deliver every day
appearance. Yes, indeed. Yes, that's a good point. What is interesting is the premiere averaged about a 3.8 rating among viewers between 18 and 49 years old, which is part of the reason they wanted Fallon in there anyway, was to bring in younger viewers. So there you go. And Bill, guess which city has the highest rent?
Well, it's not New York because they have rent control.
Right.
It's probably Washington, D.C.
I know the answer to this.
Okay, the Apartment Guide is an online website for apartment hunters, and they have it listed. You would be surprised. A 700-square-foot, one-bedroom apartment in Williston, North Dakota.
What?
Averages $2,394 a month. It is the highest rent in America.
Williston,
North Dakota. Not only that, number 4 on the list is Dickinson, North Dakota at $1,733.
Why would you? They'd have to pay me to live there.
Well, I don't understand. Like, maybe I'm missing something. What's there?
Fracking is going on there, so it's a big oil town. So I saw this report yesterday. A colleague of mine and I spent the solid half an hour on the internet stalking out this town to find out what was going on. We wanted to see.
I just see what's on Yelp in Williston,
yeah, exactly. There's one pizza place, a Mexican place, and a burger place. The burgers are like $25 per burger, so the whole thing is just out of control. But North Dakota's beautiful, I guess. I don't know.
That's amazing, though. I mean, but like this isn't adjusted for the area. I mean, that's how much it costs.
I would never have guessed certainly Williston, North Dakota, because I never heard of Williston, North Dakota.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Thank you for that helpful information.
I wouldn't move there, and if you do buy something, don't rent. For
it's sort of like, what other show are you going to learn something as important as that on?
That's right. That's right.
I mean, we are a full-service operation. We also cover some serious topics too. So, what do you make of this? That Rush Holt yesterday from New Jersey and Gloria Negrete-McLeod from California. 2 more Democrats. I think it's like maybe 19 Democrats now have said we're not going to run for re-election. Of course, Henry Waxman, George Miller got most of the attention. I mean, are they just sick of it, or?
I think there's a recognition that this is going to be a tough cycle for Democrats. I mean, you don't have President Obama on the top of the ticket. Mid-year elections are always usually tough for the president's party. Certainly, sort of the early troubles with Obamacare is something that Democrats and Republicans have said is going to be a major part of the election. And so I think that, and naturally we always have kind of a flood of retirements, especially at the beginning of the year, to allow other candidates to get into the race. I don't know if it's really a warning sign for Democrats. I think that a lot of these retirements happen in safe districts that they're going to keep for sure.
Right. And these 2 are both considered pretty safe districts.
Yeah, and so it's not that concern as much as I think a general trend of this is around the time where people. Don't
you sort of think though that if Democrats thought we're going to be in charge next year, Nancy's going to be back, Pelosi as Speaker, and we're going to be able to push our agenda and we're going to hold on to the Senate, they'd hang around?
It would certainly make things more enticing, I think. Even kind of congressional leadership has stepped back a little bit from Democrats are going to retake the House. The Senate certainly is still very much in play, and I think very important to Democrats on all levels. And we heard Jay Carney yesterday talk about how the White House was confident that they were going to keep this.
Yeah,
Senate.
you wrote about that. I sent out a tweet about that yesterday. I mean, it's surprising because usually politics, Carney skirts around politics and tries to stick to just the issues. But yesterday he said Democrats are not going to lose control of the Senate.
I think
flat out. And I just went, whoa,
oh yeah,
whoa.
I think it was with a kind of back and forth with Fox News' Ed Henry, and I think Ed maybe got under Jay's skin a little bit and provoked this response. But
it was a telling response, though.
Through the briefing, I think it was interesting because there were a few questions about whether Obamacare would be kind of a weight around Republican candidates or not. And I think there is an eagerness on the part of the administration to turn the page from sort of apologizing for some of the early issues and say, hey, more than 3 million people have health insurance now. Millions more have enrolled in Medicare or child assistance programs, and this is something that's now kind of providing benefits. And not only are people enrolling in health insurance, but it's providing benefits to people who already have health insurance, whether it's not allowing, pre-existing conditions to be discriminated against, allowing your kids when they're up to 26 to stay on their plans. And so for Democrats, changing that narrative when they have to talk about Obamacare to saying these are things that you have that Republicans want to take away is a really central kind of pivot. And it'll be interesting to see if Democrats do that more.
Now, the president today takes the day off, basically, on the job to go to Mexico for the day, not even spending the night. What is this summit all about?
So he'll be meeting with the president of Mexico and the prime minister of Canada, and they kind of joke and call this the Three Amigos Summit. And it's something that started fairly recently, but they do it every year. The focus is really going to be on trade, although there are kind of issues associated with that. Congressional Democrats have been very reluctant to back this fact.
I mean, Harry Reid has basically said this is dead in the water this year, so don't even waste your time.
Yeah,
right? So,
and even Nancy Pelosi last week said that the bill that Max Baucus developed is, for all intents and purposes, dead. And so this is kind of conflict.
This is the so-called TPP,
right?
Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Right.
So the latest trade deal that started with NAFTA and has worked up through some of the other trade deals. Right. This would be the latest one.
Exactly. So there's kind of two issues at play. One is giving the president authority to sort of negotiate these deals and say Congress won't come in and sort of change the terms after the fact. And that's what the White House is pushing for. And Congress is reluctant to kind of give up that power.
Fast track authority.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So so the president, it kind of puts him in an awkward position, doesn't it? I mean, he's going down to negotiate a trade deal with Congress basically saying, we're not going to give you the authority you need to negotiate this trade deal.
And I think that
he's dealing from not dealing from strength, certainly.
Yeah. I think that sort of both leaders in Asia, which would be the other side of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and in Mexico and Canada are sympathetic to and understanding of where the president's coming from. But at the same time, it's going to be very difficult to sort of consummate this deal if in fact Congress does come in after a deal is struck and change what's going on.
The other thing the president did yesterday, going up to Upper Marlboro, Maryland, to a Safeway distribution center, I thought he was going to be talking about minimum wage, and I want to talk to you about that in just a sec, but he was talking about big trucks and improving fuel efficiency standards for big trucks.
Exactly.
Where does this fit into the agenda here?
Well, it's interesting. We wrote a story about this today about how there's been a kind of a number of...
In The Hill, thehill.com.
Yes. I'm not plugging correctly.
I'll get the plug.
This man is a professional.
I know. About how sort of the administration's really turned a focus back to environmental issues, whether it's improving fuel efficiency standards, whether it's the president's proposed kind of a $1 billion climate resiliency fund that will show up in his next budget and help local districts sort of deal with the aftermath, so whether it's the drought in California or superstorms or these kind of different impacts of climate change that we've seen. Secretary Kerry has given a bunch of speeches on climate change that are really sort of heating up. And so it's interesting. There's a pragmatic side to this, which is that for regulations and rules to get done by the end of Obama's presidency, they really need to kind of do a push now. But there's also these kind of political questions about whether this could be a way to sort of make nice with the environmental community ahead of maybe a decision on Keystone that is not what people want to hear.
But this is the president's really following through. I mean, he does say he knows climate change, he has said, is and identified as a major issue and a top priority. And he's been thwarted by Congress in terms of any ability to get any legislation passed. So he'll just do as much as he can with a series of executive orders, right?
And he kind of telegraphed this in a speech last year at Georgetown where he laid out his climate plan and said, this stuff that we want to tackle is not stuff that we need Congress to do. It's modeled largely on an effort that Bill Clinton undertook in his second term, and you saw him protect federal wildlands and prevent logging trails going into natural parks. And so John Podesta, who was Clinton's chief of staff, is back in the White House, and so we know has a climate agenda, portfolio there.
Yeah, so we'll see probably more of this. And yes, that report from the Congressional Budget Office on the minimum wage yesterday got a lot of attention at the White House yesterday. Justin Singh covers the White House for The Hill in studio with us, thehill.com, and our telephone number. Join the conversation. Your questions, your comments at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour now, Amie Parnes and John Allen, authors of this blockbuster new book, HRC. Very, very exciting. Will be here in the studio with us in the next segment. Amy's colleague, Justin Sink from The Hill, is here in studio with us right now. Justin, if he looks a little tired this morning, that's because, he was up late last night at the big showing, at the screening at the White House of The Monuments Men. Yeah, let's see the list here of guests: George Clooney, Bill Murray, Matt Damon, Justin Sink. Oh, no, I guess somehow you're not on that list.
Somehow my invite must have gotten lost in the mail, I think.
Yeah, that happens. With mine, by the way. Yeah. Briefly, because we don't have too much time left, the minimum wage, the White House responded to the CBO report yesterday saying basically, don't believe it, right?
Yeah, they pushed back really hard and also looked to highlight some of the more positive aspects of the report. So Republicans, of course, seized on the fact that said if we raise the minimum wage to $10.10 per hour, that the nation would see about 500,000 jobs lost. Could. Yeah. What Democrats said is, well, it also says that it would raise wages by $31 billion. 16.5 million workers would see a raise, and 1 million would be brought out of poverty. And these are all goals that really align with, sort of what the White House has said is the reason to raise the minimum wage. They've also said, we heard Jason Furman yesterday really push that the minimum wage in the past hasn't resulted in job loss.
So the net impact in terms of job loss could be zero. And he basically said, in this case, he thought the CBO was wrong, but they jumped all over it. And as we just saw, Gene Sperling was on Morning Joe this morning, so they're
full court press for sure.
The full court press, indeed. Thank you for the plug. TheHill.com, Justin Sink. Great to see you, Justin. Thanks
for having me.
This
HRC is next.
Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot. I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, 33 minutes after the hour now here on a Wednesday morning, February 19, coming to you live coast to coast on your local progressive talk radio station, on Free Speech TV, and on our video stream, Talker TV. It is the blockbuster book of the moment, HRC. All about Hillary Clinton, her contribution so far, and certainly raises a question of what's next with Hillary Clinton. Authors Amie Parnes and Jonathan Allen in studio with us this morning. Very excited to see you, both good colleagues from the White House briefing room. Good morning.
Good morning. Love you.
John Allen, now from Bloomberg, and Amie Parnes from The Hill, but more importantly, co-authors of this book. You know, I've written 6 books. How do you write a book when there are 2 of you? I can't imagine.
It's hard, but it was actually a really fun process, I think. We did it writing side by side, most of it, which was really fun.
Would you do a draft and then show it to him? Did you split the chapters up? I'm just curious.
We actually started in a shared file, Google Docs. Both of us sitting there with the document on the computer. I'd write a few paragraphs. She'd say, I don't like this, I don't like that, let's move it around. She'd write a few paragraphs. I'd say, we could adjust it here, we could adjust it there. We did the first several chapters that way, and then over time we started to divorce the process into she'd write a bit and then show it to me, and I'd write a bit and show it to her. So it worked out really well. I think one of the things going into this process, we had worked together at Politico several years ago, and we'd written a couple stories together, and we'd found that it was just a really good partnership. Her strengths and my strengths complemented each other, or at least obscured each other's weaknesses. So, I think going into the process, we knew we could write together.
Yeah. Was he an asshole to work with?
Oh my gosh, he was so much fun. I mean, we definitely had our fights, but look, we're still really good friends. I consider John my best friend.
You notice she evaded the question. She answered it differently. It's so much fun to work with.
Nicely done.
No direct answer on that.
I'm not sure I could say that word on television anyhow. But let me ask you, so how much cooperation did you get from Mrs. Clinton?
That's a tricky question. We aren't talking about the access that we got, but we're very happy with the sources we spoke to. And
did you interview Mrs. Clinton for the book?
Can I wink and nod and say that we're very happy with the access we got? There's no level of the Hillary Clinton operation that we didn't get to.
Okay.
And I know that's a curious way to respond, but
it is.
There are a lot of quotes in that book that don't come from anywhere
I didn't
else.
think that was a trick question. How many people did you? How many interviews are in the Clinton world? Can I ask? All right, another trick question. How about Bill Clinton? Did you talk to him?
No, we didn't.
We did not.
You did not. Okay.
No.
Okay. Other people around, like.
We talked to very, very close people around her. I would say more than 100 of her associates, and then other people who don't like her. And
yeah, I mean, overall, the set of people we interviewed is more than 200. I would say, a good portion of that, as Amy said,
Well, that's
probably
impressive.
more than 100 are Clinton-type people. But we talked to Republicans in Congress. We talked to people in the Democratic Party that don't like her, that would prefer to see another candidate. We talked to military folks, intelligence folks.
No, it's obvious from the book that, you talk to a lot of these people. And some with a book like this, the word generally goes out. It's okay to talk to these guys, right? Or whatever you do, stiff them, right?
I mean, there were stages in the process where early on, no one was really talking, although we were going around people. And then we started sending out so many inquiries that I feel like they had to participate because we were reaching out to low-level campaign people, mid-level campaign people, and they got so many requests every day that I think we sort of won them over in a way. Yeah. They felt like they had to.
It was a shock and awe effort to reach out to people, which made the Clinton
bombard them to the point where they can't say no.
Oh, right? Yeah. I think we sent out something like 400 inquiries overall. So
now, you use the phrase political resurrection of Hillary Clinton, referring mainly, I guess, to she comes from losing in 2008, back on her feet, and ends her reign as Secretary of State, in glory. Everybody loves her. But is the political resurrection over?
Not clear yet. I think.
Well, what do you feel after writing this book?
She's running for president. I mean, the only question that I think arises in that, in terms of
you said she's running for president.
She's running
That's
for
your
president.
Conclusion.
She has been running for president since 2008.
Yeah. Something really severe would have to happen for her not to run. I think it's a 99.9% chance right now.
And I think if you read the book, you'll see how she's continued to build the political operation, how she did that at the State Department, how she built her technology operation. That was an area where Obama ran circles around her in 2008.
Yeah.
You'll see how she built ties with the business and military communities, which would be important to her in a general election were she to get there in 2016. You see how Bill Clinton went out and tended to the political work on the campaign trail, knocked out some of her enemies in the Democratic Party, rewarded friends, tried to get folks, even most recently Terry McAuliffe elected. Both of them went to campaign for him in Virginia. So this is an operation that has been building and expanding.
Even Bill de Blasio.
Even Bill de Blasio
in New York, who is not their kind of Democrat.
Yeah.
No, and it's an interesting political marriage there, right? I mean, if for the party to be successful, and this is true on the Republican side with conservatives and moderates, for the party to be successful, the moderates and the liberals have to find, or progressives, depending on your favorite word, have to find their common ground, in order to win elections. And so, you look at de Blasio and the Clintons. That's a perfect example within New York of the moderates and the progressives finding that common ground.
Do you think then, Amie, I often wondered, I'm glad she did agree to be Secretary of State, but that was a big decision on her, right? Because the guy had just trounced her and humiliated her, and she agrees to be a Secretary of State.
Definitely.
Why did she take that job?
I think she did it for a few reasons. She did it for the country because she does believe in public service, and I do believe she has a genuine affection for serving her country. I think she also did it for the party, and she did it for herself too. She didn't want to be seen as that woman who turned him down. And the way she expresses it in the book is she says, if I would have asked him, if I were elected and I would have asked him to be my Secretary of State, I would have wanted him to do it. So how could I say no? And they went through quite a bit of cat and mouse for her to get there. He called her a few times. She went to Chicago first. They sat down. He said, will you do it? She said, I don't know. He said, sleep on it. And then he called her a few times, and she kept dodging him and saying, for whatever reason, just saying she couldn't get to the phone. Mm-hmm. And then finally, she called him one morning, and she said, okay, let's talk conditions. And that was a signal to him that she was taking it.
I mean, as reporters, we all remember when we first heard the possibility that she might be Secretary. Says, oh, right. I'm flying to the moon, too, right? It seemed unbelievable.
Yeah, well,
I remember that news conference when they came out, right?
Exactly. And we have this one quote in there where she sent an email to a bunch of her advisors, and they said, we're hearing these rumors that he might pick you. And she said, oh, that's not going to happen for a million reasons. and of course it did. So.
One of the interesting things in the book is you've got emails from Hillary Clinton in there and quotes from Hillary Clinton that appear nowhere else. Both things that she said to her staff and other things. So I think there's a little more insight into the way she works.
Good reporting. So do you think was one of the reasons, maybe in the back of our head, that he's going to be out in 2016, and I might want to take another shot at this myself, and I have to keep myself alive, and what better way to do it?
I think that's always an option for the Clintons, right? I mean, they're never, ever going to count themselves out of anything. And of course, she wasn't thinking, I might run, but I think in the back of her mind, she was thinking, but maybe I will.
So some people could just discount that as, pure, unadulterated ambition. You use a phrase to bias for action, right?
Right, yeah, this was something that
you have to say about the Clintons. You mentioned public service, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a very noble trait that they have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think bias for action is a term that came from an intelligence official that was talking to us about the reason that Leon Panetta wanted to inform her one-on-one early on in the process about the hunt for bin Laden, about the fact that he thought they might have him located in Abbottabad. There was, I think, a feeling that the White House might be too deliberative, that the Pentagon was going to have some opposition, that even within the CIA they weren't sure that they really had him, in this compound. And I think the thought, as expressed to us from the intelligence side, was Panetta went in to tell Clinton, in part because he knew she would have a quote-unquote bias for action, and that she would say, if we've got a shot to get this guy, let's strike now. And that was definitely her position within the National Security Council, as we lay out in the book, and at odds with Vice President Biden and with Bob Gates, the Defense Secretary.
Again, the book is HRC. Of course, you can get it in. There's stacks of them in every bookstore I've been in lately.
Hopefully, they're diminishing a little bit.
They keep refilling them because they're diminishing. Yeah, and on Amazon, of course, at Amazon.com, and any of the other sites. Prefer your local independent bookstore. And we'll have a link up on our website, too, at thebillpressshow.com. The authors, Amie Parnes and Jonathan Allen, here in studio. John Allen, I guess I should say, here in studio with us. Just a bit better. And when we come back, it's a very interesting anecdote you talk about where Hillary went to bat for President Obama at a cabinet meeting for Obamacare and may have saved the day. Tell us about that. Your questions, your comments, welcome. Here they are, the authors of this great book, HRC, here on The Bill Press Show this Wednesday morning.
This is The Bill Press Show.
For more than 18 months, the members of AFSCME 3299 have been working to secure a new contract with the University of California. With workplace injuries at UC skyrocketing and government fines related to safety deficiencies at UC hospitals skyrocketing, Local 3299's top priority has been safe staffing at the workplace.
We've been short of people for the last 5 years. They're stretching us thin, which the students are suffering, the faculty suffering, and the patients are suffering.
While UC administrators have granted these standards to other UC workers, they have refused to make similar accommodations for AFSCME represented workers who perform the most physically demanding labor at UC.
It takes a whole team to take care of the patient. It's not just the RN and it's not just the doctor. The nurses were able to win a great contract, and AFSCME workers, the patient care workers and service workers, they're part of the team and they deserve that same fair contract too.
We take pride into working for the university, and we feel like the university doesn't value the work that we do.
But the second-class treatment of AFSCME workers doesn't end at safety and staffing. On wages, benefits, and other issues, UC refuses to offer AFSCME 3299 members the same respect they afford their other workers.
I have 3 jobs because what the university pays me is just not enough to make a living for my family and myself.
99% of service workers in the UC system make so little money that they're eligible for at least some form of public assistance. At the same time, the number of executives in the UC system that have crossed over into making at least $250,000 a year has more than doubled since 2008.
The University of California has long been a beacon of hope and progress for those struggling for dignity and fairness. With such a proud history, It is disturbing to see the leadership of the university treat its lowest paid workers like second-class citizens.
All workers at the university deserve equal treatment.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
It is the book of the hour, the book that's getting the most buzz these days on radio and television from book critics, reviewed in the New York Times and the Post, everywhere else. It's HRC, you know who she is. Amie Parnes and John Allen are the authors. They are in the studio with us. Buy the book and talk to the authors right here. So tell us about this. Amie, you start with this. The president's sort of down, the cabinet's down. They're thinking, why are we wasting all this time on Obamacare, right?
Oh, yeah.
At a cabinet meeting.
Yeah, it was the Tea Party summer. They all had their own individual priorities. And she said she saw what had happened in her husband's administration, obviously. And she said, you know what? This is our moment, guys. We have to rally around this. Let's do it. And she even talked to a few lawmakers, we found out. Mm-hmm. And this is obviously something she didn't want her fingerprints on publicly, but she obviously played a really big role privately.
And she'd been there, right, with her own plan.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly.
But she kind of turned the corner, didn't she? Or helped Obama turn the corner,
Well,
I guess.
I think one of the reasons she had to be behind the curtain on this is that she had been so toxic on healthcare back in the early 90s. And so I think she wanted to be supportive in whatever way she could without causing a problem, and also without leaving the sort of apolitical or apartisan air of being Secretary of State and not dealing with domestic issues. So from a public perspective, she had to be very distant from it. But I think, we talked to some folks tippy-top in the Obama administration. This is one of the things they talked to us about when they say that they saw her as a loyal soldier. They said, look, she comes in this cabinet meeting, she makes the argument. She was back channeling with Jim Messina and with Rahm Emanuel about a little bit about strategy and her own experience in dealing with Republicans and the onslaught of ads that would come against the issue. So, they said that it was, perhaps underappreciated because the public never saw it, but pivotal nonetheless that she sort of came in and told everybody to scrap their complaints and their other agenda items that they were trying to get in there and really focus on getting health care done.
I don't know that we've seen a public figure as resilient as Hillary Clinton. I mean, she bounced back from the defeat of Hillary Care. She bounced back certainly from 2008, and she's on top of the world today. I mean,
that was what was so striking about this book to me when we first started. I actually wanted to call it the Phoenix because she has this Phoenix-like rise to her, where she's always plummeting and then rising higher than ever. So, and I found that most interesting about her.
And we saw that in the 2008 campaign. As a front runner, people didn't like her. As an underdog, people loved her. Mm-hmm. Not everybody. I mean, certainly the Obama folks didn't love her as an underdog, but she sort of captured, I think, a lot of attention and a lot of sympathy during that sort of long slog toward the inevitable fate in 2008.
All right. So the question of the moment is: will the Phoenix rise from the ashes of Benghazi?
It's tricky. I think it's definitely going to haunt her. That's for sure. Republicans are going to make it an issue. We have Sean Spicer in the book already talking about it and saying she can get used to seeing that ad that Romney was supposed to use, about Benghazi, that they're going to be using it directed at her. So I think it's definitely something that's on the minds of Hillary Land right now.
Yeah, it won't be Susan Rice anymore. It'll be Hillary Clinton.
Right. Well, we kind of go through that evolution in the book, how right after Benghazi, the Republican investigations and interest were in Barack Obama and in Susan Rice, and that was sort of the political targeting. And then once the election turned, once the 2012 election was over, the focus switched over to Hillary Clinton pretty immediately. The Republican National Committee assigned a researcher to Hillary Clinton right after the election, the person who had done foreign policy stuff. Yeah, so there's a lot in the book about how that shift happened as soon as Barack Obama was no longer a prime electoral target and Hillary Clinton became one.
I mean, their object is to make her own it, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. And they're doing that actually on healthcare already because of this book. You know, they saw that passage that we just talked about, and they're trying to tie her to healthcare as well. So I think that's another issue that's going to come out for her.
Now, you said she's running in 2016, so let's say that she is. A month or so ago, the New York Times had the magazine cover story on Hillary, and inside this the Hillary universe, right, with all these people. Now, I have to tell you, I looked at that. I know everybody on that page, right? And I've known them for 20 years or maybe 15 years. They're the same old faces. I mean, is that a problem with Hillary that these are friends of mine, but Ann Lewis, Harold Ickes have been around a long time, and she's running in 2016. Is she going to have like new blood? That was one of her problems in 2008 too, wasn't it?
It is a problem, and it's something she keeps hearing from people that are, on the periphery of her circle, from other politicians, from people who mean her well, I think, are saying, look, it can't just be your loyalists that have been with you for 20 or 30 years. They're not ready to run the campaign for 2016 to look forward to 2018, 2020, perhaps beyond, and they sometimes give bad advice. I think she's heard that. I think she's intellectualized it, but it's not 100% clear that she's totally absorbed that lesson from 2008 of having all those people around who just, weren't really in the moment.
It's tough to do, Amy, but part of the reason she lost in 2008, I think, is she had people who were not running a 2008 campaign, and now 2016.
Definitely,
right?
But I think she's tried to mix it up. We saw that she has Jake Sullivan advising her. That's a kind of relatively new face to her. He's now Biden's national security advisor. She brought in Alec Ross from the Obama campaign to kind of run the tech side of the State Department for her. So I think she did learn these lessons, and she is mixing it up. She has a new press secretary, a new day-to-day guy, although Philippe Reines is still obviously very much involved.
He'll always be there.
Yeah, always. But, she's brought in new people. So it's not the same faces. I think she learned her lessons, but, we'll see if she did.
All right, well, it's good of you guys to come in. Really great. You're great friends and a great book and a great triumph here. So I want to ask you, the last question is the question I'm sure your publisher is asking you right now. What's your next book?
You know what?
Come on, one success. You got to build on it.
If your listeners buy it, we'll have the opportunity to write another book. I think we're submitting a proposal this week. So
keep your fingers crossed.
Oh, how did I know? All right. See, that's it. Success breeds success. Do you hear that, though? That's your incentive to buy the book online. Go to our website, BillPressShow.com, or just go to your local bookstore. Thank you, Amy Parnes. Thank you, John Allen. All right, congratulations again. See you at the White House one of these days.
Yeah.
This is the Bill Press Show.
In the early 20th century, the war to end all wars didn't end war at all. It stoked the fires of change. A traumatized world was ripe for change. The world was ready for modernism. Modernists wanted to forget history, or at least reinterpret it. More than just a style, modernism applied to virtually all forms of creative expression. Innovative artists like Picasso, Escher, Dali, they all started looking at their world differently. Other artists tried painting light itself. These were the Impressionists. Surrealists went a bit further. We had entered the age of the isms: Cubism, Symbolism, Futurism, Constructivism. All these new modern ways of looking at the world blew people away. When it came to architecture, modernists were intrigued by emerging technology. Concrete, glass and steel featured heavily in their buildings. Modernists believed that they could design a better society. Ornamental indulgence was considered a frivolous waste of effort. They thought function should always dictate form. and that mankind's intelligence, creativity and capability for radical thinking should be celebrated. Take the Russian inventor Georgy Krutikov. He suggested an idea for a city held aloft by electrical currents. This at a time when there was barely enough wattage to keep the lights on. Not everything they designed was a resounding success. But you could argue modernism was the single most influential movement of the 20th century. From house music to housewares, tables and chairs to graphic design, all have been created by the aesthetics and ideas of modernism.
Hey, you thought the first 2 hours were good? Haha, wait till you see hour number 3 this morning. Of course, you won't see it on Free Speech TV. Give them hell about that. But you can watch it on our video stream at Talker TV, youtube.com/Talker, TAWKR TV. Lots going on the world scene. Joe Cirincione from the PloughShares Fund will be here to tell us about the Ukraine and Syria and Iran and what to expect. And Chris Geidner from Buzzfeed to tell us about state after state after state now recognizing same-sex marriage. Hour number 3 coming up.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, south of the border today for President Obama. He spends a day down in Toluca, Mexico, just outside of Mexico City, with what they call the Tres Amigos Summit with the President of Mexico and the Prime Minister of Canada. They will be talking trade and attempts to hammer together the new Trans-Pacific Partnership, which has some real problems, and Democrats say it's dead in the water anyhow. When we come back, Joe Cirincione from the PloughShares Fund.
This is the Bill Press Show. Broadcasting around the nation on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, the CBO says raising the minimum wage would lift 1 million people out of poverty and mean a fatter paycheck for 16.5 million Americans. What's wrong with that? Good morning, everybody. What do you say? It is Wednesday morning, February 19, the Bill Press Show, coming to you live, as always, from our nation's capital, our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., bringing you the news of the day from Washington, from around the country, and around the globe. Around the globe, that means Joe Cirincione. He's the only guy we know that hopscotches around all the hotspots of the world and knows what's going on. Joe, good morning. Nice to see you.
Good morning, Bill. Thanks for having
coming
me.
back in.
My
Head
pleasure.
of the PloughShares Fund with us, and honored to have him in studio with our team, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy here.
Hey, good morning.
They made it in despite the snow. You know, these guys, Joe, they never missed. Snow days don't exist
That's right.
at the Bill Press Show.
We were here through the snowstorms of last week.
And this
we're here
week.
through this horrible ice-covered roads today. We don't miss a day.
Battle pay. They got extra battle pay. Alicia Cruz is here to take your calls. Don't forget, you can join the conversation anytime at 866-55-PRESS. Or you can watch the video stream thanks to Cyprian Bolding, our videographer. And this video stream, of course, is youtube.com/TalkerTV, TAWKRTV. Have you seen Jimmy Fallon yet?
No, I have not. I don't stay up that late.
How
do you stay up that late?
I don't stay up
I don't
that
either.
late.
I just watch the reruns and watch the clips in the morning. But he's had it for 2 good nights in a row.
Great.
A lot of exciting guests. A lot of his friends from the world of comedy coming in. Jerry Seinfeld last night came in, and he had given him, as Jimmy Fallon tells us, some good advice when he started.
When I got late night, you gave me some great advice. Do you remember? You said this job is a Pope job.
It's a Pope job.
You work until you die. you choose when you want to quit.
Yeah.
It's a Pope job.
It is.
It's a Pope job.
Seinfeld's voice shows up. You work until you die.
But I pointed out earlier, Joe, first of all, Jay Leno's not dead.
Oh, yes, that's right. That's true.
Neither is Pope Benedict. He retired. Right?
It's not a lifer job anymore.
Yeah.
The reference is a little out of date.
It is, yeah. As funny as it is, right? It's one of those jobs. But usually, you're there until you die, at any rate. So good luck to Jimmy Fallon. I think he's the right guy for the job. I'm a big Leno fan, too. But if Leno had to go, Jimmy Fallon's
a comic genius. He's just hysterical. I mean, just the musical numbers he does alone, getting people to
I
rap
can't
with him
believe
and-
what Jimmy Fallon has done with Paul McCartney and Bruce Springsteen and Paul Simon. I mean, it's incredible that he can do this that like guys like Letterman and Leno could never pull off, even though they've been around for so long.
You see that Springsteen bit? I
Oh,
couldn't
my
tell
God.
which one was actually Springsteen.
It was brilliant. It was genuinely brilliant.
So Joe Cirincione here with us for the first half hour, and then Chris Geidner from Buzzfeed coming in at the half to talk about how state after state judges are saying, that ban you have on same-sex marriage is unconstitutional. Big movement sweeping the country. But first, this
is
the
big
full court
headline.
press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. I have some sad news, gentlemen.
Oh, no. I'm not ready for it.
I know. Get ready for it. But the World Clown Association has reported that professional clowns are on such a decline that we have a genuine national shortage of clowns. People aren't going to clown college anymore.
You know why? They're getting elected to Congress.
Yeah, we have a clown crisis.
We have a clown crisis.
Steve King, Michelle Bachmann, Marsha Blackburn.
Maybe
We
that's
don't
why
have
Michelle
a clown. We
Bachmann
don't
is-
have a clown crisis.
We've just been looking in all the wrong
We
places.
have too many clowns in Washington.
Registered unionized clowns, where were 3,500 of them in 2004. We're down to less than 2,500 now. They're dropping like flies. People are going to actual college now and not going to clown college. So we have a real problem. We have a real problem. So kids, give up your dreams of becoming a lawyer or the president. Go to clown college. We need you. Google Glass, Bill, I know how much you love Google Glass. Yesterday, Google put out a list of do's and don'ts for people who are wearing Google Glass. they have this.
But you still can't buy them
Well, that's what
retail,
I'm saying.
right?
They have these what's called the Google Glass Explorers, and these are the people who've been. The Google Glass has been made available for them to try.
Yeah.
And so they put out a list of do's and don'ts of how to use it. Some of the don'ts, they say, do not use your Google Glass while you're doing high-impact sports because they can break. And they also say don't be creepy or rude. In other words, like if you're at a restaurant, don't take pictures of your food or other people with your glasses. And be respectful of others. So they have a whole list of guidelines now for how to wear your stupid
Let me tell you
glasses.
something. After seeing her, Google Glass is so outdated.
Yeah, right.
Google Glass is the last century.
Yeah, exactly.
Compared to her. Have you seen her yet?
Not yet.
Go see
I
it.
know. I've been trying
Yeah.
to.
And Bill, you're going to Chicago this weekend. Don't do what Antonin Scalia did. Supreme Court Justice was speaking at the Union League Club of Chicago this past weekend. And when he was there, he said about Chicago-style deep dish pizza, quote, "It shouldn't even be called pizza. It's very tasty, but it is not pizza." The crowd turned against Scalia. But I think he's right, damn it. I think he's got a good point.
But that's like going to Philadelphia and saying Philly cheesesteak stinks.
Yeah. You don't do that.
Well, it's also joining Jon Stewart. Stewart had a thing about Chicago.
He did.
He
He did. I think Stewart said it was like a bread bowl filled with marinara.
Another question, Bill. Are you going to use a fork when you eat your Chicago-style pizza?
Well, here's the deal. If you get Chicago-style pizza, it's okay to use a fork and knife.
Yes, you have to.
Because it's not pizza. It's like a casserole situation.
So I'm speaking at the DuPage County Democratic Club, Democratic Party fundraiser this Saturday night in Chicago. Keynote address. I am not going to insult pizza. I can tell you that while I'm there.
No, just praise Chicago. Great city.
It is. I love Chicago. I'm very excited
Just
about
there
going
last
back.
month. Very great.
Yeah, and you know.
By the way, I love the ticker tape that you run in the back
You
of
like
that. Do we still have those?
Is it still running? Do we still have the ticker tape running?
Do we still have ticker tapes?
Yeah, we have the last known ticker tape machine in North America here.
You go into any newsroom in this city right now, and people wouldn't even know.
I wouldn't even know what it was. What?
If you said where's the ticker tape machine, they would have no idea what you were talking about. No idea. Right.
That's right.
All right. And I just want, for the record, I have never worked in a newsroom with a ticker tape either. Okay, Joe. There's so many hotspots on the planet now. Well, can we start in Ukraine because that seems to be the big flashpoint right now. I mean, it wasn't so long ago we had it wasn't orange, whatever revolution.
The Orange Revolution, yes,
it was
that's
the
right.
Orange
Yes,
Revolution.
Ukraine,
yeah. And so I thought they were on their way to democracy, and now it's falling apart again.
So protests erupted a couple of months ago when the president, Viktor Yanukovych, turned away from the European Union offer to merge more closely with them and accepted a Putin offer of $15 billion in aid and to stay closer to Russia. The public was outraged at this, and they took to the streets, occupying large sections of downtown cities, particularly Kiev. Largely peaceful. 2, 3, 4 people, I think, died over the last few months. That all changed yesterday when police tried to clear the squares. It looks like the police initiated the violence. And we now have stories of 25 dead, including 7 police officers, a journalist. Kiev is in flames. There are fires burning in the streets, and the showdown continues. Looks like protesters are determined to hold their ground, and the police are going to try and push them out today.
And they set these, the fires, this ring of fires to kind of keep the police away. The police were firing rubber bullets. It wasn't like Egypt, right, where they were firing live ammunition.
Well, there were some reports of snipers on the rooftops and
Yeah.
confrontations with people going up to clear the snipers from the rooftops. So
And
this
what
is
can we
getting
do
ugly.
in a situation like that? Nothing except condemn the violence, and right?
You condemn the violence, and you've seen the Secretary of State and then the Vice President come out yesterday condemning it, and now there's increased talk of Europe putting sanctions on the government, so you try to economically squeeze it, but that may play into Putin's hands and push the existing government even closer to Russia.
Meanwhile, we're now 3.5 years into the civil war in Syria.
Yeah, grim.
And they're more and more. They're dragging their heels on the chemical weapons, getting rid of the chemical weapons. they continue the violence, the attacks on the Assad regime does on the citizens there. And I hear more and more people just saying, whatever we're doing in Syria is obviously not working, and we have to have a whole new approach.
And the president has realized that. Whether you think he had the wrong policy to begin with, or whether you think he tried to do the right thing but failed, it's clear that it hasn't worked. And the White House itself is now looking at all new options, and there's no good choices here, but that the options are now under review because the rebels are losing. They are in retreat at this point. They're
fragmented. We have to recognize that, don't we?
We have to recognize that. And the bombardment of the cities and the rebel positions continues. They found a replacement for chemical weapons, what they had been using to clear out large parts of the urban resistance movement until we stopped that. So that's the one good story here is we've stopped the chemical weapons from being used, but they replaced them with barrel bombs, these crude devices, just barrels filled with dynamite and nails and shrapnel, and then dropped from helicopters or low-flying planes, and they've killed to tens of thousands. In fact, more people have died in the last couple of months than have died previously in a similar period.
I'm reading right now Peter Baker's great book called Days of Fire about the Bush-Cheney White House.
Yes.
And I just was reading the last couple of days about where for President Bush to come to the realization that what we were doing in Iraq at the time was simply not working. It was tough for a president to realize, he'd been on this tack for so long, right? This track that wasn't working, and they're going to have to change course.
Yes.
So that's a tough turning point for any president to accept failure, basically, right?
Yes.
And say we have to do something different. But what can we do different? Doing something different in Syria, does that mean military intervention?
Well, remember, to begin with, there were no really good options. So the idea of massive aid to the rebels, which was being pushed in the beginning, fear that would just inflame the crisis, and the arms would end up in extremist hands, Al-Qaeda-linked forces. So we didn't want to do that, and there was an effort to try to get Russia involved to try to bring pressure on Assad. Okay, neither of those things worked.
Right.
And so now our allies, Saudi Arabia and Qatar and other Gulf states, have been funneling lots of money and lots of weapons to the more extremist elements, and so undercutting our own policy. So you've got to recognize that. The options that they're now looking at are, one, a massive increase in humanitarian assistance. There's no reason why Syrian refugees should be freezing to death in the deserts. We already give hundreds of millions of dollars, but they're talking about increasing that. And two, seriously doing major arms shipments, even though the rebels are fractured and united. I mean, a lot of this reminds me of the last scene in Lawrence of Arabia, where Lawrence of Arabia is trying to bring a peace conference of all the Arab allies, and it all breaks up into bitter fighting and factional dispute. Think of John Kerry as Lawrence of Arabia trying to get some kind of unity among the rebel forces so that he can give them the aid. That's the situation we're in, but we may have to go with the few forces that we have and give them as much aid as we can.
Yeah, it just looks like there's just no end in sight and no solution, no ready solution in sight, right?
It's clear that Assad is not going to stop doing what he's doing, so you got to find a way to stop him. And if Russia's not going to help, then that means you're left with the least desirable choice, which is feeding more arms into the conflict, knowing that means the violence is going to get worse.
And a big report out this week from the UN on North Korea, and the talks on Iran's nuclear program finally getting underway. The serious talks yesterday. Joe Cirincione is here to tell us all about it. You've got questions, comments, suggestions on Syria or the Ukraine so far, or what's coming up. 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show. on your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
24 minutes after the hour, Chris Geidner from Buzzfeed joins us for the next half hour. Right now, we're here with Joe Cirincione talking about the international hotspots. Joe has a new book out, by the way, called Nuclear Nightmares, Securing the World Before It Is Too Late. Ooh, pretty scary title.
It's a romance
novel. Joe, nobody knows this subject better than you, so one day we're just going to talk nukes, okay? Talk the book, right?
My pleasure.
Come back, and next time we'll do that. But I have to ask you, so Iran, I got an email from the PloughShares Fund telling me yesterday that the Iran talks are underway. Are we hopeful that these will lead to some decision on Iran's part?
We are hopeful. These are tough negotiations. Both sides are publicly staking out maximalist positions, as you would expect as we go into negotiations. Right. But they're engaged. The talk reports from the first 2 days are that they're going well, but this is going to be a 6-month process. We have an interim deal that has basically frozen Iran's nuclear program, and now over the next 6 months, we're going to see if we can get a permanent solution that could disable large parts of it and make sure that Iran can't race to a bomb.
And will this process be derailed by more sanctions imposed by members of Congress?
It would be, but it looks like we've won that battle. There were a number of senators, led by Senator Kirk and Senator Menendez, who tried to pass a new sanctions bill. For the first time, a sanctions bill has been defeated. It's not even being brought to the floor. It looks like a concerted effort of administration pressure and outside pressure. PloughShares was part of that, rallying the troops to try to hold off these new sanctions, have bought diplomacy some time. We have 6 months to test Iran's true intentions.
Because there already were pretty tough sanctions on Iran, right?
Oh yeah. We don't need new sanctions. None of the negotiating countries wanted new sanctions. They all warned it would cripple the process. So it's a good thing that are not putting them on.
And finally, a UN report out this week on North Korea, basically saying that their treatment of their citizens, their human rights violations, are far worse than we had even suspected.
A very important report. It documents the kind of brutality of this regime and says we should hold the leaders, including Kim Jong-un, the leader of the country, personally responsible and consider taking him to the International Criminal Court.
Whoa.
China's resisted this, and of course North Korea's denounced it, but it's the first international extensive documentation of the scale of the human rights abuses, the starvation, the gulags, the prison camps, the executions that are going on. First time an international body has done that. Human rights advocates around the world are praising the report.
Yeah, but again, what can we do, right? We sort of depend on China, and it seems that Kim Jong-un ignores China.
Well, the judge who introduced the report, who was the head of the panel, said in the UN that this is a body where we always have reports and then don't take any action. He couldn't promise any action will be taken, but at least, he said, we can't say we didn't know. So it's this kind of first step that builds the case against North Korea.
Do we have any talks with North Korea, or is there any prospect of that?
We don't have any talks. We are actually, John Kerry was just talking with the Chinese about this, about Chinese pressure to get the North Koreans
to the table?
To the table, and to take actions to roll back their nuclear program. That's the first issue we would discuss with them if they wanted to talk
I guess
again.
the problem is that you have an insane person, right, leading the country right now. It's hard to deal with somebody.
Even insane people have foreign policy objectives, including preservation, self-preservation, so you can get them to talk about that.
I like that positive note. Joe Cirincione, PloughShares Fund, PloughShares.org. Thanks, Joe.
This is the Bill Press Show. on your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
On a Wednesday morning, February 19, the Bill Press Show coming out to you live on your local progressive talk radio station. So lucky wherever you are, if you happen to have one, support them and support the sponsors you hear on that station, and stay with us here on the Bill Press Show. Also, you can watch our video stream, if you were so inclined, on your laptop or iPad or whatever, at Talker TV, youtube.com/Talker, TAWKR TV. And if you check out the website BuzzFeed, which we always tell you is such a great website covering everything, including cat videos, BuzzFeed.com, you'll see the headline today, "What is going on with marriage equality these days?" A story posted by Chris Geidner, who joins us in studio this morning. Good morning, Chris. Nice to see you. All right. What is going on with marriage equality these days? I mean, it seems like a lot is, right? In state after state.
There is a lot going on, and I think that it was sort of all came down to the sort of declaration that Justice Kennedy made in the case striking down DOMA, United States versus Windsor, that sort of empowered judges across the nation to sort of take action commensurate with a ruling that could have struck down DOMA. And while the court, if you remember, they had this Prop 8 case out of California, and they tossed it on standing because none of the government officials were willing to defend the statute, the initiative. And so basically the trial court ruling stood, and we didn't get any sort of a big 50-state Loving versus Virginia type solution to the problem. But in the striking down DOMA, the court had sort of enunciated this view that treating gay and lesbian couples differently than opposite-sex couples isn't going to work in the long run.
And the court, in effect, said, we're not going to give a ruling for all 50 states, but state by state can decide this, right?
Yeah, and I mean, what we've seen...
And now, state by state, they are deciding it.
Yeah, I mean, the record, there was a great piece that Dahlia Lithwick and I think Steve Cohen wrote at Slate last week that looked at sort of all of the courts that have examined the Windsor ruling. And there was sort of this debate after Windsor came out whether or not it was a federalism decision or an equality decision. I haven't really engaged in that debate other than to say, no, it was clearly an equality decision. But there were people arguing, including Chief Justice Roberts in his dissent, that this was a case about states' rights. This was about the fact that the federal government doesn't have the ability to take on this marriage, which has traditionally been a state role. And 32 courts, 32 judges since Windsor have looked at whether Windsor is an equality ruling or a federalism ruling, and they've all said it was an equality ruling.
Wow.
And
now, so the impact we've seen, like last week, a federal judge in Virginia said the ban on marriage equality, same-sex marriages, is unconstitutional, right?
Right, yeah.
We also had a judge who said that in Oklahoma and in Utah.
Yeah,
right?
these are not...
right, these are three red states. I mean, Virginia now you could say is purple, maybe leaning blue, right, with Terry McAuliffe.
Depending on the DSCC, will tell you differently.
But I mean, so this is not like Vermont or Massachusetts, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, now some of these judges, the Virginia judge was a Republican appointee, but the Oklahoma and Utah judges were Democratic appointees. But the fact is that these these three judges. The 32 judges includes things like back, if you remember, in New Jersey when the court was deciding how Windsor applied and whether or not federal benefits made a difference in New Jersey that led to them getting marriage equality. But these three judges have looked at the U.S. Constitution, looked at bans on same-sex couples marrying, and said, no, you can't do that after Windsor, and in light of where the court clearly is at this point, you just can't do that anymore.
So doesn't this tell us, right, that, I mean, the big question for me after the Supreme Court decision was, okay, in what are we up to, 14 states now, I think, where states have
17.
17,
Yeah.
okay, have actually said same-sex couples have the same right to marry
and
as
we had
straight couples.
18
right?
for 2 weeks there, 3 weeks there with Utah, with the Utah couples that could marry.
But there are all these other states where there's a constitutional amendment against it, and the question was, well, we can get, in some states, the legislatures to pass this, but what about these constitutional amendments? I guess the answer is the courts.
Yeah, the
courts are striking those constitutional bans down one state at a time.
Well, they're striking them down one state at a time, but they're also setting up, I mean, the way that the federal court system works is that they're striking them down one state at a time, and with the exception of Utah, where we did have those sort of 2.5, 3 weeks where they could get married until the Supreme Court issued a stay, is that the system holds, basically. We've gotten these trial court rulings. The Virginia judge put a stay in effect pending appeal. And now these cases are all going up to the appellate courts. The appeal in Virginia will be to the Fourth Circuit. The Oklahoma and Utah cases are both at the 10th Circuit. There's the Ohio marriage recognition. In Ohio and Kentucky was just last week too, there were rulings about whether or not the state had to recognize same-sex couples' marriages from other states.
Yeah.
Those both would be going up to the Sixth Circuit. And then there was the Nevada case that was before Windsor's DOMA case was decided that had actually ruled against the plaintiffs, but now it's on appeal, and even the Nevada officials have said we're not, including the Republican governor Brian Sandoval, has said we're not going to defend this anymore because the Ninth Circuit has basically said that this heightened scrutiny applies to classifications that discriminate against gay people.
Chris Geidner is our guest. He is the legal editor, I see your title here, of Buzzfeed, particularly writing on these issues about marriage equality. Well, I wanted to ask you that it seems that those people who are still so opposed to marriage equality, and they're still out there and they're still fighting their battles, but they must know they're losing. On every front now.
Oh, they do. I mean, if you look at
the Roberts Court,
if you look at the National Organization for Marriage's news releases, I mean, you've got to almost feel for them. I mean, when you're crafting. When the news release is literally saying, like, today another judge, or for the second time this week, a federal judge went against
and when you lose in Oklahoma, right, or you lose in Utah.
Yeah, this is the federal courts, and this is why. I mean, this is why these federal court system. I mean, there have been new cases filed recently, and what the system is going to do is we've now got cases in 4 circuits, the 4th, the 6th, the 9th, and the 10th, and there will probably be more circuits added to the mix soon, and they're going to hear these appeals, and then there's going to be appellate decisions, and somebody's going to appeal it.
It's all going to come back to the Supreme Court again, and the next time the Supreme Court will have to decide.
Well, yeah, I looked
on
at
the right
They're
at
on
the
the 50
level,
state.
right?
Yeah,
50
they're
state level.
really good at avoiding things if they want to.
Yeah.
They could, in theory, and that's in this piece about where things stand. I sort of end with how could the court delay this? And there's two ways the court could delay it. They could either, in the Ninth Circuit, there was an opinion just recently about this heightened scrutiny, whether or not we treat sexual orientation classifications like sex classifications, that the courts view them more skeptically. And there was a decision that had nothing to do with marriage. It actually had to do with jury selection that the Ninth Circuit decided recently. And if that gets appealed, the court could sort of hold off on the marriage and say, we're going to decide this question of the level of scrutiny first, and then we're going to let all of the appellate courts decide in light of that decision how to decide, and then we'll get up to the Supreme Court.
It is happening so fast. I mean, and I've raised this question before. It's hard for me to judge which is going to happen first. Pot is legal in all 50 states, or same-sex marriage is legal in all 50 states. Both causes or both movements are moving so fast.
Yeah,
I think same-sex marriage might win.
Yeah, I think most likely it will, because I mean the thing with pot is we're going to have like congressional action, because we're going to need to deal with this Schedule 1 question.
Not if you do it state by state by state.
Well, yeah, eventually you're going to have, but eventually we are going to have, these problems that they've had with banking, these issues. Eventually they're going to have to deal with this Schedule 1 issue.
The federal government's going to have to deal with it, right.
And that's sort of, I think once the federal government moves on that, there are a lot of states that are probably like holding off because of that, because they don't, this administration is dealing with it one way, but another could deal with it a different way.
And we have to take a break here, but the other thing interesting about both is that those states where they have recognized same-sex marriage and the two states where they've recognized, made recreational pot legal, are both experiencing huge economic benefits.
Right, that's one of the
coming into the state, either to get married or to smoke pot.
Or in the case of Washington, both. Washington's the one state with both so far.
There it is, your marriage destination, Seattle. 866-55-PRESS is the toll-free number. Your comments on this amazing progress we're making in the acceptance of same-sex marriage. Still got a long way to go. Chris Geidner is here. Your call's welcome at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show. on your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go. 11 minutes before the top of the hour. It's Wednesday morning, February 19th. Thanks for being with us here on the Bill Press Show. And again, we welcome Chris Geidner from Buzzfeed, legal editor. Buzzfeed.com is the site. Chris, again, thanks for coming in. We've been talking about just state after state after state where federal judges are saying, no, this state ban on same-sex marriage just doesn't meet the constitutional test. It's just pure outright discrimination. Do we know what state are there? Cases in what states should we expect next?
All of them.
Is that right? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Honestly, there are. I mean,
I'm sure more suits are being filed as people see the success.
Well, yeah, there was just in the Southern Poverty Law Center filed a lawsuit in Alabama last week. There's a question.
That would be the acid test, I would think.
There's
Alabama, maybe.
Yeah. Well, they're going on Colorado this week. There is. There was a weird situation that there was a news conference scheduled for yesterday that got canceled, but they are supposedly going to be filing a lawsuit in Colorado this week at some point.
Overall,
so we'll get Colorado and Washington.
Yeah, right. There you go. Overall, what's the feeling in the LGBT community about President Obama? Has he been,
That's a double-edged sword question. You know it, Bill. I mean, I think that there are.
He's the first president to recognize.
Well, yeah. I mean, there are clearly people who. There is no doubt that President Obama, having a Democratic president in this segment of time when there is such movement on these issues, they sort of gelled at the same point and came together and have reinforced and advanced each other in the same way. I mean, the administration stopping defending DOMA, I still think is the most important thing that the administration did, even more so than Obama supporting marriage itself.
Really.
Because that changed the way that these cases went in the courts, and his own personal view followed that legal decision. And I think that mattered.
Of course, and again, he's the president who got rid of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which another Democratic president gave us. But now there's a lot of, I hear, dismay or disappointment that the president has not, by executive order, done anything about discrimination in the workplace. So the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, which is bottled up in the Congress. And so people, I hear...
Well, has passed the Senate and is now awaiting action in that illustrious lower chamber.
Yeah. So why doesn't the president do it by executive order?
No, nobody knows. This is so the executive order that the president could sign is limited. It would be covering federal contractors. Now that is 20% of the private workforce.
He just signed an executive order on the minimum wage that only covered federal contractors.
Yeah, this is you've gotten into the problem now with the administration has avoided signing this executive order since April 2012. They announced that they weren't going to be signing it at that time. So it's been we're going on 2 years now, and then just last week, as you noted, the president signed an executive order where legislation wasn't moving forward that affected employees to protect the employees they could protect, which are federal contractors. And the thing with this non-discrimination executive order is that there's been a non-discrimination executive order for federal contractors since World War II. FDR put it in place before the military was integrated. Yeah. He said, well, I won't integrate the military, but I'll give you the federal contractors at least so that the people working here at home can't be discriminated against. And so that was obviously 20 years before the Civil Rights Act, which is the portion of
Title VII, which is the same as ENDA. And the Obama administration's argument that we need to get ENDA before we could do that doesn't really gel with history or with his own actions that he took thus far on the 1010
So
race.
on that one issue, we just have to keep the pressure on. You will at BuzzFeed. We will here on the show. That does it for time. Chris, great to see you. Thanks for your good work.
Thanks
fun
a lot,
reporting,
Bill.
and for coming in today. BuzzFeed.com, where you can follow Chris every day, and I'll be back with today's parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show. The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, former presidential counselor David Axelrod had some good advice for Democrats yesterday. I hope they listen. I hope they follow it. He tweeted out, quote, "With the Senate seriously at risk and the Koch brothers spending prodigiously, shouldn't Democratic funders be focused on 14 and not 16 races?" He is 1,000% right. Nothing against all this talk about Hillary Clinton, but too much is at stake in 2014 to be worrying about 216 now. Control of the United States Senate, control of the House of Representatives. 36 governorships are up this year. So I joined David Axelrod in saying, forget about 2016 for now. Work hard to win big in 2014. Then we can deal with 2016. My best advice for today, my parting shot. Hey, folks, have a great Wednesday. Come back and see us again tomorrow morning. We'll be looking for you.
This is the
Have a good
Bill
one.
Press Show.